Welcome to the deep dive. We all sort of instinctively get that phrase, knowledge is power. But, today we're going a bit deeper than that. We want to explore this truth that often gets missed. That power, well, it's completely stuck until you actually unleash it. We're going to peel back the layers and really look at why just knowing something is only step one. It's the doing with that knowledge. That's where the real breakthroughs happen, and maybe even some surprising opportunities.
That's absolutely right. This deep dive, it's really all about showing how putting knowledge into practice isn't just, nice to have. It's fundamental. It's the engine for personal growth, for getting ahead professionally, even for society moving forward. And to make this really concrete, really tangible, we're going to use a super practical example, something lots of us deal with online. Finding specific information, especially finding people.
Yeah, think about it. Maybe you're trying to reconnect with an old friend or colleague. Or perhaps you're checking out a new business contact. Or maybe you just heard about someone interesting. You want to, learn a bit more. You've got a name, maybe a company. But the internet, it can feel like this huge, chaotic library with no index. So our mission today is basically to hand you the digital map and the right tools, show you how knowing about the internet structure, knowing what resources are out there, how that translates directly into doing really powerful, targeted searches.
Okay, so let's really dig into this core idea first. That journey, that leap from just knowing something to actually doing something with it. Imagine maybe knowledge as this huge, perfectly organized workshop. You've got all the best tools lined up, the most advanced diagnostic gear, the sharpest saw, the most precise laser, everything.
Right. But if those tools just sit there on the bench, well, you can admire them all day long, but you're not building anything, are you? You're not fixing that engine, not creating that masterpiece. Their value, their whole point, it only clicks when somebody picks them up and uses them for a specific job. That's the key shift, isn't it?
Precisely. Think about a brilliant economic theory. Doesn't matter how elegant it is on paper if it never gets implemented, if it never actually shapes policy to make things better. Or a killer sales technique. Totally useless if you never actually practice it, never use it with a real customer. The potential is there, absolutely, but it just sits there, inert, until someone acts.
Okay, so if knowledge is the tool, what's the connector?
Yeah.
What gets us from having the tool to actually using it? I guess that's where skills and competencies come in, right?
Yeah.
It's not just what's in your head, but what you can actually do with it.
Absolutely, that's the bridge. Think about a doctor. They don't just know anatomy from a textbook. They have the skill to diagnose tricky conditions, to perform complex procedures. Or a programmer. They don't just know Python or Java. They have the competence to build software that works, that solves a real-world problem. And you build that bridge through practice, through trying things out, experimenting. Yeah, and probably making a few mistakes along the way. That's how theory turns into real usable ability.
When we talk about using knowledge, I mean, one of the biggest areas everywhere in life has to be making decisions. Better information leads to better choices, surely.
Well, yeah, and that brings up a really important point, right? How do we handle all the uncertainty in life, in business, in policy? It comes down to having good information, relevant information that's well-structured, and crucially, knowing how to analyze it, how to make sense of it. Whether you're figuring out personal finances, or a company's mapping out its market strategy, or a government is setting public policy, the better the information, the better the analysis, the better the decision is likely to be. Knowledge isn't the goal, it's the means to find the best path.
Right. And connecting that to the bigger picture.
Yep.
Applying knowledge must be the main way we solve really big problems and drive innovation. You think about the huge challenges we face as a society.
Exactly. Things like diseases or poverty or climate change. We don't beat those just by understanding them, however deeply. It demands that we take that understanding and actively turn it into real solutions. New medicines, better ways to distribute resources, cleaner technologies. Innovation, really, when you boil it down, is just applying knowledge existing or new creatively to make something new and valuable. It's the doing part that actually moves the needle.
That's a really solid framework. But how does this idea, this applying knowledge, actually look in our everyday digital world? I'm really interested in how it works for something specific, like finding people online. That seems like a perfect case where public info turns directly into action.
Right. It's a great example, yeah, because that skill, it's useful for so many different reasons. Maybe you are trying to find that old classmate, or you're helping with some local research, or just verifying someone you met professionally. It can even be about personal safety sometimes. And like our sources point out, the real power isn't just knowing the information might be out there somewhere. It's knowing which tools to use, and critically, how to use them well. It's applied knowledge, pure and simple, and pretty accessible too.
Okay, ready to get into the nuts and bolts. Let's look at 10 really useful free tools that make this knowing to doing things super clear. First up, the obvious starting point, general search engines. Your Googles, Bings, DuckDuckGos.
Yep, always start there. And a quick tip, use quotation marks for exact phrases like Jangdo, if you want that specific name.
Yeah.
And definitely add context if you have it, city, job title, university, anything like that helps narrow it down. Oh, and here's something cool. Google Lens. Most people think it's for identifying objects, but you can actually use it for reverse image search on people's photos. See where else that picture shows up online.
Interesting. Okay, next, the big world of social media. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok. These places are just packed with data.
Absolutely packed. The key here is to go beyond just scrolling your feed and use their advanced search features. They're often a bit hidden but powerful. You can search by name, sure, but also by interests, mutual connections, companies they worked at, schools they went to. LinkedIn is obviously the gold standard for professional stuff. Facebook, X, maybe more for personal interests, connections, that kind of thing. You just need to know where to look within the platform.
Right. Okay, moving to more specialized tools. We've got WebMI. What's the angle with this one?
WebMe is basically a people-focused search engine. It pulls together public info from lots of different online places, including social media. It's got a nice, clean layout. And one particularly useful thing it can sometimes do is find public email addresses if someone's been mentioned, say, in an online document or article that got indexed. Kind of like a digital detective consolidating clues you might miss otherwise.
And then there's PQ. Similar idea.
Similar, yes. Another specialized people finder. It actively crawls social media and other web data. What's nice is you often just need a name and maybe a country to get started with a broad search. It casts a really wide net, often finding profiles on sites you wouldn't have thought to check manually.
Okay, number 5. Snitch.name. Sounds a bit dramatic.
Yeah, the name is a bit much. But it specializes in tracing connections across different social networks and databases. It's about finding those links between profiles, those digital breadcrumbs that might not be obvious on the main platforms, trying to see how different online presences might connect back to one person.
Gotcha. And what if you have a username but aren't sure where else it's used? That's what'smyname.app.
Exactly. This one's pretty clever. If you know a username someone might use, you pop it into this tool, and it checks its availability and usage across literally hundreds of different online platforms. Stuff like Reddit, GitHub, forums, gaming sites. It gives you clues about their broader digital footprint. It's great for piecing things together if you only have that one identifier.
That could be really useful. Now, if you actually have a picture of the person, PyMize uses facial recognition. That sounds powerful.
It is. You upload a photo, and PyMize scans the web to find where else that face appears publicly. It's a unique way to search. Now, the free version might limit how much detail you get on the results. You might not see every source, but it can definitely point you towards websites or public photo galleries where that person appears. A different angle entirely.
Okay, now for the more advanced users, Google Dorks. These aren't separate tools, but specific search techniques.
Right. This is about using Google itself more powerfully. Dorks are just specific search commands operators that let you refine your searches dramatically. For instance, typing site.linkedin.com, Jane Doe Tech Company, tells Google to only search within LinkedIn for profiles matching that name and company. Or you could use filetype.pdf John Smith resume to look specifically for PDF documents containing that name and the word resume. It turns Google into a precision instrument.
Makes sense. Number 9 is the Wayback Machine at archive.org. Not exactly for finding people directly, but still valuable.
Hugely valuable, yeah. It's not searching for people now, it's searching for websites as they used to be. It's an archive of the internet. So if the person you're looking for had an old website, maybe a blog that's gone now, or a profile on a site that shut down, the Wayback Machine might have saved a copy. It's like a digital history book.
A digital time capsule, yeah. Okay, and finally, number 10. Have I been pwned? I know this one for checking data breaches. How does it help find people?
So its main job is data breach checking. You put in an email or phone number, and it tells you if that piece of data has shown up in known breaches. But think about it. If you have an email or phone number for the person you're looking for, running it through Have I Been Pwned can do two things. First, it can help confirm if the contact info is even valid or associated with any online activity. Second, if it has been in a breach from a specific service, like, say, LinkedIn or Adobe, it gives you a clue about other platforms they might use. It's indirect, but sometimes gives you that extra breadcrumb.
Wow. Okay, so you can really see how just knowing about these tools, and more importantly, understanding how and when to use them, That transforms just vaguely knowing information is out there into actually being able to find it. It's that knowing to doing shift in action. But it's not always that easy, is it? I mean, even with the tools, what stops people from actually applying knowledge effectively?
That's a really critical question because, yes, the tools are there, the knowledge is often there, but our sources point out some pretty significant roadblocks. One big one is often this gap between academia and industry, what you learn in theory versus what's needed in practice.
Yeah, you definitely see that. What's taught in school or university sometimes feels disconnected from the practical skills the market actually demands right now. It's like learning the physics of bridge building from a book, but never actually, pouring concrete or riveting steel. The knowing is there, but the practical doing part isn't fully formed.
And another huge one, maybe the most human one, is the fear of failure. Applying knowledge, especially trying something new, inevitably involves experimentation. And experimenting means you might make mistakes. That fear, that hesitation can really stop people cold from trying new ideas, even if they intellectually know it's a good approach.
That resonates. And kind of linked to that is just plain old inertia and resistance to change, right? People in organizations get comfortable doing things a certain way. Even if new knowledge points to a better, faster, cheaper method, sticking with the old way often feels safer or easier. Breaking habits is tough.
It really is. Then there's the modern problem of information overload. Just too much noise. We're bombarded with so much data constantly, it can actually lead to paralysis. You spend all your time trying to absorb everything or figure out what's important, that you never actually get around to acting on any of it. It's hard to see the signal through all the digital noise.
That's a big one for sure. And something often missed, I think, is the lack of soft skills. You can have all the technical knowledge in the world, but applying it effectively, especially in a team or organization, often needs strong communication, good leadership, critical thinking, creative problem solving.
Exactly. Skills that aren't always taught alongside the technical stuff. You might know how the code works, but can you explain it clearly? Can you collaborate with others to build the final product? That's crucial.
And finally, maybe the simplest barrier of all.
Just plain unawareness of the tools and methods available. Honestly, despite things like Google and the tools we just talked about, many people just don't know they exist. Or, if they know they exist, they don't really understand how to use them strategically to turn that raw data into something genuinely useful, into actionable intelligence.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway for you listening? Overcoming these hurdles, it seems like it really needs a shift in mindset, doesn't it? Prioritizing action, being okay with experimenting, committing to learning continuously, and really internalizing that knowledge truly comes alive when you apply it.
Absolutely. That core idea, knowledge without application is useless.
Yeah.
It sounds harsh, but it's fundamentally true. It underpins all real progress. The genuine power, the actual value of knowing something isn't in just having it stored away. It's in actively using it to get tangible results.
Yeah, we've seen how knowledge really sparks to life when it becomes a practical skill, when it guides good decisions, when it's used deliberately to solve problems or create something new. That whole process of finding people online, using the right tools strategically, it's just one clear example of how public information becomes a potent, practical resource when you know how to act on it. It really is the doing, fueled by the knowing, that makes things happen, creates efficiency, builds real value.
For us as individuals, definitely, but also for businesses, for society as a whole. Building a culture where we actively apply what we know. It's not just a nice to have anymore. It feels essential for navigating and hopefully thriving in the complexity of the world we live in now.
So as you head back into your week, here's something maybe to mull over. Think about your own intellectual toolkit. All the things you know, the skills you have. Is there a particular tool in there that you've maybe left sitting in the box gathering a bit of dust? And maybe, just maybe, what's one specific, concrete action you could take this week, however small, to apply something you've learned recently, to turn that bit of knowledge into some real-world impact? The power, as we've said, is really in your hands. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.